10 Rarest GM Muscle Cars of the 1980s. What if I told you that some of GM's wildest muscle machines, most muscle car fans, have never even heard of them? These aren't your typical Chevelles or Camaros. We're talking about V6 monsters that outran Corvettes, NASCAR homologation legends, and special editions you couldn't even buy in California. How many of these hidden gems do you remember? How many have you actually seen in person? If you're a fan of raw torque, real steel, and that unmistakable smell of gasoline-soaked horsepower, we're talking to you. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment below telling us which one of these cars you'd bring home to your garage. Ready to go deep into 10 rarest GM muscle cars of the 1980s? Buckle up, this is Muscle Car Masters. '89 Pontiac Turbo Trans Am 20th Anniversary. It didn't rumble like a big block, and it didn't wear a screaming chicken on the hood, but make no mistake, the 1989 Turbo Trans Am was a predator. Built to mark 2 decades of Trans Am legacy, this car wasn't about nostalgia. It was a warning shot to every V8 on the street, including the almighty Corvette. Only 1,555 units were built, and under that sleek, wind-tunnel-honed skin was something truly wicked. Buick's fearsome 3.8-liter turbo V6, straight out of the Grand National GNX playbook. No joke. This thing meant business. Officially rated at 250 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque, insiders knew it was pushing way more closer to 300 horsepower in real-world street conditions. That's how you get 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, and a quarter mile in 13.4 at 101 miles per hour. In a V6, in 1989, let that sink in. Top speed, 153 miles per hour. No limiter, no apologies. Weighing 100 pounds less than its V8 siblings, armed with 11.9-inch brakes, performance shocks, and Goodyear Gatorbacks, the TTA was a street-legal assassin. Subtle on the outside, lethal under pressure. It didn't roar, it whistled, as that turbo spooled and your competition vanished in the mirror. And yet, Pontiac wasn't done humiliating the Corvette. Not even close. '85 Chevrolet Corvette C4. This wasn't just a Corvette, it was a declaration that America's sports car could go high-tech, high-speed, and still turn heads doing it. In 1985, Chevy dropped the aging Crossfire injection and gave the C4 a much-needed adrenaline shot. Under the hood came the all-new 5.7-liter L98 V8 with tuned port fuel injection, rated between 230 to 245 horsepower, and cranking out a solid 330 pound-feet of torque. It finally gave the C4 the punch to match its futuristic looks. With a 0 to 60 time of 5.7 seconds, it was snapping necks on the street and holding its own on the track. But what really made the '85 Vetta feel like it came from tomorrow? That cockpit, baby. Fully digital LCD dash. Driver Info Center. The debut of Bosch Gen 2 ABS. Stuff most European exotics hadn't even figured out yet. Add in the Z51 performance package, Bilstein shocks, stiffer bushings, a 3.54 rear axle, and suddenly this fiberglass missile became a true canyon carver. With a drag coefficient of just 0.34, it sliced through the wind like a stealth fighter. Forget chrome and nostalgia. This was the moment the Corvette grew up. and left the past behind in a cloud of digital readouts and Goodyear rubber. But if sleek lines and wind tunnels are your thing, the next GM legend was built like a bullet. (1986) Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. Born from the speedways of NASCAR and disguised as a street cruiser, the 1986 Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe was Chevrolet's secret weapon in the battle for high-speed supremacy. To qualify for NASCAR's aerodynamic homologation rules, Chevy had to produce just 200 units of this sleek-bodied Monte, and that's all they built. As a result, it became one of the rarest performance Chevys of the 1980s, and an instant icon among racing purists. Under the hood sat a familiar 5.0-liter LG4 V8, or 305 cubic inches. It pumped out 180 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. Not record-breaking, but enough to make a statement. But this car wasn't about brute force, it was about cutting through the air. Its defining feature, the steeply sloped fastback rear glass, paired with an integrated spoiler, dramatically reduced drag at NASCAR speeds. This gave Chevy's race teams, including legends like Dale Earnhardt, a crucial edge on the oval. Weighing around 3,500 pounds, the Aerocoupe could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.5 seconds. It came factory-equipped with the F41 performance suspension, 15-inch rally wheels, and a 4-speed automatic. On the street, it looked slick. On the track, it was a bullet. Don't take your eyes off the screen because the next historical secret might just blow your mind. (7) 1987 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. By 1987, Chevrolet had perfected the formula that began with the limited-run 1986 Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. And the result? A full-on NASCAR-inspired street machine that finally reached a wider audience. With 6,052 units produced, the 87 Aerocoupe was no longer just for collectors, it was for serious performance fans who wanted a race-ready look and feel. Beneath the hood was the same 5.0-liter LG4 small block V8, 305 cubic inches, rated at 180 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. Paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission, it could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 8.7 seconds. Not mind-blowing, but respectable for a rear-wheel drive coupe with serious aero chops. The Aerocoupe's signature feature remained its sloped rear window and molded deck lid spoiler designed to cheat the wind on high-speed oval tracks. And it worked. The Monte Carlo dominated the 1987 NASCAR season, scoring 18 victories and proving its aerodynamic tweaks were more than just cosmetic. Built by Cars and Concepts in Michigan, the production models were street-legal but retained much of their race-bred soul, complete with the F41 sport suspension, performance rear axle, and rally-style wheels. It may not have screamed muscle car in the traditional sense, but for fans of late 80s NASCAR and Detroit ingenuity, the 87 Aerocoupe hit all the right notes. If you think the Monte Carlo was peak GM performance, wait until Oldsmobile enters the race. (1985) Oldsmobile 442. By the mid-1980s, many muscle car legends had faded into memory, but Oldsmobile wasn't ready to let the 442 nameplate go quietly. In 1985, the 442 made a bold return. Not as a fire-breathing drag strip monster, but as a refined muscle coupe with just enough bite to honor its bloodline. Power came from a 5.0-liter V8 307 cubic inches with a 4-barrel carb. That motor cranked out 180 horsepower and 245 pound-feet of torque. Now, that might not be outrageous by 1960s standards, but paired with a 4-speed THM 200-4R automatic and a 3.73 limited-slip rear axle, it had legit mid-range punch. What really set the 85 442 apart was balance. Everyday drivability met purposeful styling and just enough performance upgrades to make it count. It came with sport-tuned suspension, stiffer shocks, and sway bars that helped it corner flatter than most of its G-body cousins. You could get it in two-tone colors, white over gray or black over gold. It rode on 15-inch chrome wheels with gold accents, wrapped in Goodyear GT radials for that perfect muscle stance. Inside, it had a full-gauge cluster, bucket seats, and a leather-wrapped sports steering wheel. You weren't in just another Cutlass. The return of the 442 wasn't loud, but it was proud. A reminder that Oldsmobile still had muscle in its DNA. But over at Pontiac, a little-known warrior was busy rewriting the rules of aerodynamics. (1986) Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2. The 1986 Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2 is one of the most unusual GM muscle cars of the 1980s and hands down one of the rarest. Built specifically to homologate Pontiac's Grand Prix body for NASCAR, only 1,225 units were ever made. That makes it a real oddball on the street. At its core sat GM's 5.0-liter LG4 small block V8 305 cubic inches. Power output hovered between 165 and 180 horsepower, with 245 pound-feet of torque. It was paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission, good for 0 to 60 in about 9.3 seconds, and a top speed of 122 miles per hour. But what really made the 2+2 stand out was that bodywork. Designed for the oval, it rocked a long, sloped bubble rear window, flush-mounted headlights, and a unique aerodynamic nose cone that slashed drag and improved high-speed stability on the track. Unfortunately, that aggressive rear glass narrowed the trunk opening. And with the added cost roughly $2,000 more than a Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe, it was a tough sell at dealerships. Most of these cars were moved through factory auctions instead of regular showrooms. (1983 to 84) Hurst Olds. The return of the Hurst Olds in 1983 and 84 was a nostalgic breath of fresh air for Oldsmobile fans who remembered the glory days of the late 60s muscle scene. Built on the Cutlass Supreme G body platform, these cars weren't just about looks. They brought back attitude, exclusivity, and a touch of racing flair. Under the hood, both years packed a 5.0-liter, or 307 cubic inch, 4-barrel V8. It cranked out 180 horsepower and roughly 250 pound-feet of torque. Sure, it didn't match the earlier big block monsters, but in a market that had all but neutered performance, the Hurst Olds felt downright punchy for its time. But what really made these rides stand out? The wild lightning rod shifter setup. That 3-stick system straight out of the drag strip let you manually control gear changes in a fully automatic transmission. It turned ordinary driving into a performance ritual. The 83 model rocked a black over silver paint job with red striping. In 84, they flipped the script silver over black. Both rolled on 15-inch chrome superstock wheels with red pinstripes, a nod to the original 1969 Hurst Olds. Only 3,001 units were built in 83. Just 3,500 followed in 84. That made them rare sightings even back then, and serious collectibles today. But believe it or not, there's one Olds from 1980 that's even rarer. And if you lived in California, you never even saw it. (1980) Oldsmobile 442W30. This wasn't just another G-body Cutlass with a badge and some stripes. The 1980 Oldsmobile 442W30 was the last gasp of a dying breed. A fire-breathing holdout in an era when horsepower was being strangled by emissions laws and fuel economy mandates. Only 886 of these machines were ever built, making it one of the rarest production 442s in Oldsmobile history. And if you lived in California, forget about it. This car was banned in the Golden State thanks to its performance-focused emissions setup. Under the hood sat a 5.7-liter Oldsmobile V8, not a rebadged Chevy block, but a true Olds engine. This 4-barrel 350 cubic inch mill made between 170 and 180 horsepower and a stout 275 pound-feet of torque. It was mated to a 3-speed turbo Hydra-Matic and paired with the Rally suspension package. This thing could still throw down when the light turned green. It came in black and gold or white and gold, and it looked every bit the street brawler it was meant to be. The W30 badging was subtle, but if you knew, you knew. For die-hard Olds fans, this wasn't just a car. It was a final stand. A middle finger to the growing wave of neutered sedans and badge-engineered pretenders. But just when you thought V8s ruled the world, a 4-cylinder was about to steal the spotlight at Indy. (1984) Pontiac Fiero Indy Pace car. In an era dominated by V8s and badge muscle, Pontiac pulled a shocker, putting a 4-cylinder Fiero at the front of the pack in America's most iconic race, the 1984 Indianapolis 500. Yeah, you heard that right. A mid-engine, 92-horsepower commuter coupe was chosen as the official pace car. But this wasn't your average grocery getter. Pontiac unleashed a special edition, the Fiero Indy Pace car. It came dressed in a striking white paint job, full aero kit, and enough swagger to earn its place in racing history. Production models featured the 2.5-liter Iron Duke inline 4153 cubic inches, pumping out 92 horsepower and around 135 pound-feet of torque. It wasn't fast. 0 to 60 came in around 10 seconds. Quarter mile? 17 seconds. But it looked like a spaceship and handled like a go-kart. The real stars, though, were the prototype pace cars. These bad boys ran a 2.7-liter Super Duty engine, making a wild 232 horsepower. Only 3 were built, but they proved the Fiero had potential far beyond what GM was willing to mass produce. With only 2,000 Indy editions made, it's one of the most collectible Fieros ever built. A symbol of Pontiac's bold experimentation during a time when most automakers were playing it safe. And by 1989, the Corvette would be back with a vengeance. One 1989 Chevrolet Corvette. By 1989, the Corvette had fully embraced its role as America's flagship performance car, not just in name, but in numbers, tech, and presence. The fourth-generation C4 had matured into a straight-up powerhouse, and the '89 model stood proud with GM's 5.7-liter L98 V8 under the hood, 350 cubic inches of pure fire. The coupe was rated at 245 horsepower. The convertible? 240 even. But torque? a healthy 345 pound-feet. One of the most potent American rides of the decade. For the first time, buyers could opt for a 6-speed manual transmission, though a 4-speed automatic was still on the table. With the Z51 performance handling package, the Vetta came alive. Upgraded springs, thicker stabilizer bars, quicker steering ratios, and heavy-duty cooling systems. It rode on 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Goodyear Eagle tires, fully independent suspension, a BS Gen 2. This thing stuck to pavement like glue in corners and under hard braking. Inside, it mixed analog gauges with a digital dash display, real-time readouts, sport-bolstered power seats, driver-focused controls. In 1989, the Corvette wasn't just beating domestic rivals, it was punching at Porsche and Ferrari, with American pride in every rev. You've just seen some of the most underrated and rarest GM muscle cars of the 1980s machines that most gearheads have never even heard of. From turbo V6 beasts to NASCAR-born street legends, these cars weren't just fast, they were forgotten icons. Which one blew your mind the most? Ever spotted one in the wild? Tell us in the comments, we want to hear your story. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share this video with a fellow muscle car fan. Because at Muscle Car Masters, we don't forget history, we ignite it.